From the very first point of contact to the final closing, the role of a realtor in Florida is to guide, educate, coordinate, and protect the customer throughout the entire real estate transaction. A realtor is not just someone who shows properties or writes contracts. They serve as the central point of communication between the buyer, seller, lender, title company, home inspector, surveyor, association, insurance agents, and all other parties involved. It is important to note that before showing any property, the realtor will provide the customer with a compensation agreement. This document outlines exactly how the realtor will be compensated, who is responsible for that payment, and the specific terms agreed upon, ensuring full transparency. On the matter of broker compensation disclosure, it must be understood that brokerage fees and commissions are not set by law and are fully negotiable. Neither buyer nor seller is obligated to pay compensation to a broker unless that party has agreed in writing to do so. Furthermore, a buyer's broker may not receive compensation from any source that exceeds the amount or rate agreed to in that written agreement with the buyer. The process usually begins with an initial conversation. The realtor takes the time to understand the customer's goals, needs, budget, preferred location, timing, and expectations. If the customer is a buyer, one of the first and most important steps is obtaining a pre-approval from a lender. The lender reviews the buyer's income, credit, assets, debts, employment, and financial documents to determine how much the buyer may qualify to borrow. This pre-approval helps the buyer understand the appropriate price range, estimated monthly payment, down payment, loan type, and closing costs. It also gives the buyer greater strength when making an offer because sellers want to know that the buyer is financially prepared and able to close. Once the buyer is pre-approved, the realtor begins the property search. The realtor reviews available properties, compares prices, studies neighborhoods, evaluates market conditions, schedules showings, and explains the advantages and disadvantages of each property. The realtor helps the buyer understand the property's value, location, condition, market demand, and comparable sales. The realtor's job is not simply to open doors, but to help the buyer make an informed and confident decision. When the buyer finds the right property, the realtor helps prepare the offer. This includes the purchase price, escrow deposit, financing terms, inspection period, closing date, included items, contingencies, and any special conditions. The realtor explains the contract and negotiates with the other side. The goal is to protect the customer's interests while keeping the transaction realistic and moving forward. It is important for the buyer to make a realistic offer based on the property's condition, comparable sales, current market conditions, and the amount the property is reasonably expected to appraise for. After the offer is accepted, the realtor helps coordinate the next phase of the transaction. This is when many moving parts begin. The buyer must deliver the escrow deposit on time, schedule inspections, continue working with the lender, apply for insurance, and review any association documents if the property is located in a condominium, homeowners association, or another type of community association. The lender continues working on the loan by requesting updated documents, verifying employment, reviewing credit, confirming assets, preparing the file for underwriting, and ordering an appraisal of the property. The appraisal is an independent professional opinion of the property's market value. It is especially important when the buyer is obtaining financing because the lender wants to make sure that the property provides sufficient value to support the requested loan. For example, suppose a property is listed for $500,000 and the buyer offers the full asking price. If the appraisal comes in at $500,000 or more, that is great. The property supports the contract price, and the transaction is generally in good shape from an appraisal standpoint. However, if the appraisal comes in at $480,000, there is a $20,000 appraisal shortage. In that situation, one of three things will usually happen. The seller agrees to lower the purchase price based on the appraised value. The buyer agrees to make up the difference by paying the appraisal shortage out of pocket, in addition to the buyer's down payment and closing costs. Or the buyer and seller negotiate and agree to a new purchase price somewhere between the contract price and the appraised value, which will also result in the buyer paying the difference out of pocket, in addition to the down payment and closing costs. A good realtor will work to ensure that an appraisal contingency is included in the as-is contract when appropriate. This contingency may allow the buyer to renegotiate or cancel the contract if the property does not appraise at the required value, subject to the specific terms and deadlines stated in the agreement. Without adequate appraisal protection, the buyer could be contractually obligated to proceed with the purchase or risk losing the escrow deposit, depending on the terms of the contract. For this reason, the realtor must carefully explain the appraisal provisions, financing contingency, deadlines, and possible consequences before the buyer signs the offer. The realtor stays in communication with the lender to make sure the financing process is moving forward, and that all contractual deadlines are being respected. The title company also plays a major role from A to Z. Once the contract is executed, the title company receives the contract and opens the closing file. The title company collects important information from the buyer, seller, realtors, lender, and any association involved. It performs a title search to confirm ownership and check for liens, mortgages, judgments, unpaid taxes, code violations, open permits, or other issues that could affect the transfer of ownership. The title company also works to clear the title before closing. This may include obtaining mortgage payoff statements, verifying property taxes, preparing closing documents, handling the settlement statement, coordinating with the lender, and making sure that the deed and other necessary documents are properly prepared. The title company receives and disburses funds, records the deed, pays off existing liens or mortgages, and issues title insurance when applicable. In simple terms, the title company helps ensure that the buyer receives proper ownership and that the closing is handled correctly. A surveyor may also be involved, especially with single-family homes, land, or properties where boundary lines are important. The surveyor prepares a survey showing the property lines, location of buildings, fences, driveways, easements, encroachments, setbacks, and other matters affecting the land. The survey helps the buyer, lender, and title company understand the property's exact boundaries. It can also reveal issues such as a fence crossing onto a neighbor's land, a structure built too close to a boundary line, or an easement affecting the use of the property. The home inspector also has an important role. During the inspection period, the buyer hires a home inspector to evaluate the property's physical condition. The inspector checks major systems and components such as the roof, plumbing, electrical system, air conditioning, appliances, windows, doors, structure, attic, visible moisture issues, and other accessible areas. The inspector prepares a written report containing findings, photographs, and recommendations. The home inspection report may also be used by the insurance agent to help determine the price, terms, and availability of an insurance policy. This is especially important in Florida, where the condition of the roof, electrical system, plumbing, air conditioning, and other major components can affect insurance coverage and premiums. The realtor then helps the buyer understand the next steps after the inspection. If problems are discovered, the buyer may decide to accept the property in its present condition, ask for repairs, request a credit, renegotiate the price, or cancel the contract if permitted under the terms of the agreement and within the inspection period. The realtor does not replace the inspector, contractor, attorney, engineer, or other licensed professional. However, the realtor helps coordinate the process and negotiates based on the buyer's instructions. If the property is located within an association, such as a condominium association or homeowners association, there is an additional process. The buyer may need to submit an association application, pay application fees, provide identification, financial information, background information, references, and vehicle information, and sometimes attend an interview or orientation. The association may have rules, regulations, budgets, reserves, special assessments, rental restrictions, pet restrictions, parking rules, and approval requirements. The realtor helps the buyer understand that association approval can be a very important part of the transaction. The buyer must carefully review the association documents, including the declarations, bylaws, rules and regulations, financial statements, budgets, meeting minutes, application requirements, and any pending or current special assessments. If the association has the right to approve or deny buyers, the closing usually cannot occur until approval is received. The realtor helps coordinate communication between the buyer, association, management company, lender, title company, and seller's agent to make sure the application is properly submitted on time. It is also important to understand that different cities and counties in Florida may have their own local ordinances, laws, inspections, disclosures, permit requirements, lien search requirements, code compliance issues, and required paperwork. What may be required in one city or county may not be exactly the same in another. For that reason, the realtor must help the customer remain aware that real estate transactions are not controlled only by the contract. They may also be affected by local government rules, municipal requirements, county regulations, and property-specific issues. Insurance is another important step. In Florida, the buyer may need homeowners insurance, windstorm coverage, flood insurance when required, and additional coverage depending on the property and its location. The lender will usually require proof of insurance before granting final loan approval. The realtor may remind the buyer to obtain insurance quotes early because the cost and availability of insurance can affect the monthly payment, affordability, and final loan approval. As closing approaches, the realtor continues to monitor deadlines and communication between all parties. The lender works toward final loan approval and the clear to close. The title company prepares the final closing documents and settlement statement. The seller prepares to move out, and the buyer prepares the funds needed for closing. The association, when applicable, provides its approval. The survey, inspection, appraisal, insurance, title work, municipal requirements, and local paperwork all come together. Before closing, the realtor schedules the final walkthrough. This allows the buyer to confirm that the property remains in the agreed-upon condition, that the seller has removed personal belongings as required, that negotiated repairs were completed when applicable, and that no unexpected changes have occurred. On closing day, the buyer signs the loan and closing documents. The seller signs the deed and other required documents. The title company receives the funds, pays the necessary parties, records the deed, and officially transfers ownership. Once the transaction has been properly funded and recorded, the buyer receives the keys. From A to Z, the realtor's role is to guide the customer throughout the entire process. The realtor coordinates communication, explains each step, protects contractual deadlines, helps solve problems, negotiates when necessary, and keeps the customer informed from beginning to end. The lender handles the financing and orders the appraisal. The title company handles the title work, closing documents, funds, and recording. The surveyor confirms the boundaries and land-related issues. The home inspector evaluates the property's condition, and the inspection report may assist the insurance agent in determining coverage, pricing, and policy terms. The association reviews and approves the buyer when required. Local cities and counties may also require additional paperwork, searches, inspections, or compliance procedures. All of these professionals and requirements play an important role, but the realtor helps bring them together so the transaction can move smoothly toward a successful closing. In Florida real estate, every transaction involves numerous details, deadlines, documents, laws, compensation agreements, and responsibilities. A professional realtor helps the customer navigate the process with confidence. From the initial online property search and first phone call to the moment the keys are handed over at closing. However, buyers and sellers should always consider consulting with a qualified real estate attorney before signing documents, after signing documents, and whenever they have legal questions or concerns during the transaction.